And at the moment, far too much is centralised in Westminster and Whitehall. And Andy Burnham is committed to a devolution revolution, as you say earlier. And I think that will be really valuable for this country.
Well, let's get some more thoughts on devolution and the plans by the Prime Minister to hand more spending powers to regional mayors for local investment, infrastructure and other growth projects. It's understood this will not include raising powers, tax raising powers. There are some other question marks here. How much money will they get? What strings, if any, are attached? And what then happens to the regions that don't have a strategic mayor? We're joined now by Claire Ward, who is the Labour Mayor for the East Midlands. Claire, good morning.
Good morning.
For anyone who doesn't know, can you explain how your funding currently works?
So at the moment, we have a devolution settlement, which is a guarantee of a certain amount of money over a period of 30 years. So in my case, in the East Midlands, it's £38 million a year. That's not index linked. And that's the first major part of that settlement. And then we get money according to the different responsibilities. So about another 50 odd million pounds a year for skills, adult skills 19 plus. We have a transport settlement, which is over a longer period of time of 6 years, and that equates to a mixture of capital and revenue of about 2 billion. So it's a whole range of different pots of money. Brownfield Housing Fund, again, that's about 100 million over a number of years. So they are very difficult to tie together for specific activities within the region because they come with a lot of strings attached.
Yes. So if you want to spearhead a new project, do you have to ask for specific permission from Whitehall or central government before you can do that?
So we can determine what our priorities are for the investments. So that's the great thing about being a regional mayor. Instead of trying to argue that we should spend something, for example, on a piece of roadworks within our region and comparing that against something in London or the South East, we make the decision about those priorities. But on big investments or in determining what the rules are about how we spend them, London is still in charge.
OK, so what's your understanding of how Andy Burnham is going to change things?
So my understanding of the conversation is that we won't be raising income tax ourselves. We won't decide to put an extra few pennies on to local income tax, not in the way in which some of the devolution powers exist, say, for example, in the nations, like in Scotland, where they have a tax raising power. What we will be able to do is to get a share of the income tax that's either raised within our region by people working within the region or people living within the region. So some of that detail is still to be determined. But what that does, it gives us an incentive and a longer term pipeline of that money that we can also borrow against, which helps us in terms of our spend.
It also raises a question, doesn't it, that how equal those measures will be, because you don't want poorer regions to be punished by that policy. If you get a share of the income tax in the East Midlands, I assume, please correct me if I'm wrong here, that the more wealthier regions like Greater Manchester or like London will get a bigger piece of that pie then.
Yes, so you're absolutely right, and that's one of the concerns. And that would need to be determined in terms of that balance between grant funding and the share of the income tax. So those are the details that we started to have a conversation with the previous Chancellor on, and we were still engaging in that. So there is still a bit of work to do, but the actual commitment to getting that hasn't been agreed. And so if Andy Burnham is going to announce that, that will be really welcome to mayors.
Yes, I guess there might be greater devolution, but we could end up in a scenario now where poorer regions get poorer, richer regions get richer.
Well, I don't think that will be the case at all, precisely because we've got a Prime Minister who understands those challenges and understands why it's important to give mayors an incentive to be able and the power to be able to raise their game, really, so that when they've got income tax there, they are actually seeing the benefits of the economic growth that's coming back into the region, and they've got power to be able to borrow against that income stream. So I do think there is some negotiation, some detail to work through, but this is really exciting. We remain one of the lowest when it comes in the G7 and indeed across the Western world of countries where we have fiscal devolution. And at the moment, far too much is centralized in Westminster and Whitehall. And Andy Burnham is committed to a devolution revolution, as you say earlier. And I think that will be really valuable for this country.
What's first on your to-do list for things you want to do in the East Midlands that you haven't been able to do before?
So I think there's a number of things. One of the other areas that we are calling for government to give more powers to regional mayors is in relation to skills. So at the moment, I only have responsibility for adult skills 19 plus. What I really want is those responsibilities at 16 plus. So that helps me to shape the career path for young people within my region, align those career paths to the opportunities for jobs within the region, specifically within the East Midlands. And if we get that and are able to have some flexibility about the funding, I can determine what will help to actually get those career paths moving. For example, if I've got flexibility on things like transport funding, so I've got ability to move capital to revenue, for example, I might decide that we need to support some of our young people in getting to those jobs or getting to those career opportunities. I can't do some of that at the moment because I don't have that funding flexibility.
Claire, thank you very much for your time this Sunday morning. Claire Ward, the Labour Mayor of the East Midlands.